My name is Don Stott. I am a father who experienced estrangement from one of my adult children firsthand. Welcome to Beyond the Pain, a place where parents of estranged adult children can find peace and healing. In each episode, I hope to share stories that'll help you through some of your darkest hours. To bring this out of the shadows and stop being ashamed. Then to build you up and inspire you to love yourselves even more. I want to start by reminding you that I am not a therapist or a doctor. I am just a guy who's been there and wants to help you have a life past our estranged children. If you need mental help coping with this or have thoughts of hurting yourself or someone else, please seek professional help. Hi there. On today's show, we're going to have a guest with us today. Her name is Nancy Lee Klune. She is an author and also an estranged parent. So we're going to talk to Nancy and get some information about her book and hopefully some of her story, and that will help other people out there as well. So let me bring Nancy on. Oh. Hi there, Nancy. How are you?
Hi there. I'm well, thank you. And you?
Very good. So thank you for coming on to the show. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I don't know if you had the opportunity to. I know I sent you a couple. I don't know if you had the opportunity to listen to some of the podcast, but I've been doing this for about 2 years now, right after or right before the pandemic started. And so my thought is I just want to try to help some of those parents out there that, like you and I, probably thought in the very beginning that you're the only one going through this.
Mhm.
You have to be a little crazy. What did I do? So started this so that hopefully we can help some of those parents and they won't, feel so quite as awful as we did, hopefully.
Well, they probably do feel as awful as we did, but maybe we can help them feel a little better.
Let's hope. So another of my listeners shared your book with me. And she said she really, really got a lot of comfort out of it. Like I have told you, I'm in the middle of reading it, but I didn't want to wait because I think it's too important to wait on me because it could be a little bit. And so I wanted to bring you on, talk a little bit about your book, touch on as much as you'd like to about your story, and see where it goes. So will you share with the listeners the name of your book?
The book is called Banished, A Grandmother Alone, Surviving Alienation and Estrangement.
Okay. And so obviously I've read some of the book, and that you are an estranged parent. Are they still estranged from you?
Semi.
Okay.
Semi.
All right. So about you personally, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. About the estrangement or about myself?
About yourself, and then we can go into the estrangement.
Okay. I'm a musician, a former professional dancer. I'm also a composer. I have lullabies on every possible venue.
Oh, cool.
So basically, I'm just a regular person with talent and interests, and small successes throughout my life, and not so small. But I always loved to write, and when this happened, I started just jotting things down. They say journal, so I tried journaling, which led to a blog, and one day I saw that 2 people had read it, and I was like, oh my gosh,
Ooh.
my blog. So I kept writing, and my following has increased, and I found out along the way that there are a lot of people going through this.
Aren't there?
It's unbelievable, and I'm wondering if it always went on, or if it's just coming out in the open, or if it's a generational
Right.
thing. I don't know. So then my blog led to the book,
Yeah.
and the book is sort of a handbook. It's not. Somebody wrote, I wanted more stories. There are no stories really about other estrangements,
Yeah.
uh, and I touch on things that happen in mine. So my estrangement started 20 years ago when my son met this woman and married her. And very soon I suspected a disorder in her.
Mm.
And because I was accused of saying and doing and thinking things I did not think or say or
Oh
do.
my goodness.
And, it became a campaign against me.
Yeah.
And I had to sign an agreement early on that I would only have every third Christmas with them, and it just bizarre stuff.
Wow.
And my friend, and I wasn't going to sign it, and my girlfriend said, "Sign it. You want to know your grandchildren, and this is the only way. They're giving you no other option." So I
Yeah.
signed it, and then a few years went by, and then they got my son and his wife got separated, and when they got back together, I got a phone call from their therapist saying they wanted me out of their lives, and that's in the preface of the book.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, and of course, this particular therapist should have lost his license because it was so unethical.
Yeah.
And they kicked me out of the house I was in, and because my son owned it and her, and they had a yard sale with my belongings, and I'm like, it was
Oh my gosh.
it was terrible. It was my second home. I had a home in California. Anyway, so I was not allowed to see the kids. I was cut out of their lives, and there were four of them, twin girls. Then there were only three,
Aw.
and one boy was 4, almost 5, and the other was 6. So they were the two older ones. Well, especially the oldest one was affected by it because he knew me, and all of a sudden I
Right.
disappeared, and I did nothing wrong, nothing. I watched what I said. I was careful because I thought this girl, you're not going to go up against her because
Right.
you don't. You can't win, and it's still the dynamic in that family where she she coerces and she has rage and everybody. It's a borderline thing, narcissistic. It's in cluster B personality disorder in the DSM. So
Wow. Okay.
I'm pretty sure I have a master's in psychology, so I'm an armchair diagnostic. you know. Um, so it broke my heart, and I did try to write those letters of amends that other people have suggested, but it just blew up in my face. It did not work. It was the worst thing I could have done, actually.
Right.
So I continued to communicate with the children by sending gifts for Christmas and birthdays and whatever else I could imagine. Like I wrote like regular letters, which they thought was fun. And, I came up with different ways to connect with them over the years, Valentine's Day, any holiday I could think of.
Right.
And so I was always allowed to do that, which was helped, but but it was odd because I'm not allowed in their house. I'm not allowed to spend my second grandson I'm not allowed to their graduations. I'm not invited to anything. My son and I do talk.
Wow.
He is under her control. He's got Stockholm Syndrome. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yes.
Okay, but for those who don't, it's when you fall in love with your captor and you start adapting to their insanity and agreeing with them. And then finally, mentally, you start believing the own lies you're telling yourself to survive.
Right.
So, I have seen the grandchildren here and there for the last 3 years. We're not particularly bonded. We're fond of each other, but we missed the bonding years. And so you
Right.
replace them. And my son is still struggling with, his issues and but he does try to reach out from time to time. But, like you said earlier when we were talking privately, it's not the same. It's very dicey.
Yeah.
When you reunite and you reconcile, it's up and down. It's really up and down.
Really is.
And the parent because we're older and wiser, we do all the work. We're the ones that keeps our mouths shut. We're the ones that say, okay, they're younger, they don't get it. So that's where that's it. So, but what I do understand, everybody's story is different.
For
Mine,
sure.
mine was precipitated by my daughter-in-law. She wanted me out, and in order for my son to survive as a father and a husband, I had to go. And
Right.
I understand that, and it doesn't make it right, but I understand it. So, but so that we can't have what we want sometimes.
No.
I can't have a regular relationship with my grandchildren or my son. I'm not invited to Sunday dinner or even allowed on their doorstep,
Right.
for no reason. There is nothing. I asked my son, what did I do? And I don't know, Mom. I don't know. She just gets mad. Yeah.
I've always maintained with in the Facebook group that I'm in and anyone else that I talk to like yourself that I, I just feel like that as long as you weren't um, physically, mentally, or sexually abused, then what there is no reason
No,
for this. I mean, yes, there are bad parents out there, obviously,
of course.
but unless you do certain really, really bad things, and I mean, you may not have to be close to your parent if they were not the greatest parent, but that doesn't mean you have to banish them from your life.
Well, of course,
Just
it's extreme. It's an extreme
yeah,
thing to do, um, and it is. Uh, in this case, it didn't even have anything to do with what I did or didn't do because this person was accusing me of things that were in her head.
right.
Nobody can navigate that.
No.
There's no way around it. And my son, because he's got Stockholm Syndrome, he started to believe everything, and he
Yeah,
started to, turn against me because he had to survive in the system he's currently still in.
right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a great and terrible loss for a parent, and to be treated with such cruelty is, I don't think you ever get over it.
You mentioned earlier, not sure if this kind of thing has been going on for a long time or if it's generational, whatever. And I actually was talking to one of my friends in the group, and she suggested for me to do an episode about generational estrangement because obviously it does happen. And then I got to kind of examining my family
Yeah.
and
No.
realizing that I mean, my father, when I was 4 or 5, maybe 6, um, they separated. They were, I don't really know quite what happened. Obviously, I was very young, but, and I have vague memory of him, but that's it. And so, and then I looked at some of my siblings, had children who did the same thing or that we were estranged kind of from each other. And I mean when I started the Facebook group, the admins and we kind of tried to find a definition of estrangement, and it's very all over the place.
Mhm.
There's no like this is estrangement. There's estrangement, estrangement light,
Yeah.
or there's other familial estrangement. There's strained relationships where people think it's really estrangement. We have people try to come into the group sometimes, and we prefer people. Kind of sounds bad, but we prefer people that have been estranged for just a little while, like with no contact. That's what our group is about.
What is the name
Um,
of your group?
it is healing and support for parents of estranged adult children.
I'll have
That's
to
a
look it up.
mouthful. Um, but there are some times that we'll get somebody to come in and they've been fighting with their kid for a couple of weeks and are like, that's
That's
not quite what we're doing here, and all manner of other things. People that are separated because they're in, whether kids are in or them. Well, I guess their kids are in jail. That's not the same.
well, yeah, no,
So,
no.
but in examining my family, I realized just in my one little family that it has happened quite a bit, and so I think it's, and I think it's probably been going on for a while, but I think it's worse maybe these days because of the lack of connection maybe with humans, especially the younger generation. My kids are 20s and 30s. Some of the estranged parents' kids are in their 40s, 50s, and beyond.
Right.
So it's different generations. But with my kids' generations, they're just kind of and younger. They're just kind of all about this, not human interaction stuff. So they don't know how to. So
I'm not sure we can pin it on that.
no, I just think there's a portion of it that
could be a portion.
Yeah.
I agree with you on all accounts, and I also did the same thing. I looked back in my family,
Yeah.
and I think daughters-in-law, the son's wife thing with his mother has been around forever.
Right.
I think that's sort of a dicey thing for a lot of women, especially if they're insecure. The wife and the mother of her husband.
Right.
That's sort of old jokes about in-laws and everything.
Right.
But when I started looking at my family, I saw that my uncle had married a woman who didn't like my grandmother, and she was mean to her. They didn't cut them out.
Right.
And I also saw that my father's mother was not in my life like my maternal grandmother was. I loved them both when I was a child. And looking back, I see that she was not treated very warmly by my parents, my
Right.
grandmother. She would didn't drive, so my father would pick her up for Easter and Christmas, and that's when I would see her. And I feel really bad because you follow your parents' leads on things,
Right.
and I left her alone. I didn't know better, and now I look back and think, why didn't I visit her? Why didn't I?
Right.
Why didn't I? And then my other grandmother, who I loved dearly, she'd call me when I'm in my early 20s. I go, oh, I got to talk to my grandmother, who I loved and adored, but I was so selfish and launching out of my home and getting married and a child. And I just was like, what? I was unkind. And I regret it deeply,
Yeah. But I think even that with people of, older generations, because I'm included in that too now.
Barely.
But yes, you may not have jumped through hoops to be around them or whatever, but if they really tried and they really wanted to talk to you, you probably wouldn't. I think more times than not wouldn't have just ignored them completely.
No, of course not. But I could have been better.
Can't we all? Can't we
Yeah.
all? So,
But it's true. It happens more than you think. And I think it just wasn't talked about much. When I started writing my book, there was nothing out there about estrangement. There's a very good book, Stop Walking on Eggshells. I remember good and helpful, and Codependent No More, very good stuff, that you apply.
There's one, Stop the Crying, I think. I can't remember quite
That
what
came
the
out
title
around
is.
the same time as mine.
Did it? Okay.
Done with the Crying. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
That came out, I think, right before me.
Okay.
And then we were like the only ones out there, but now they're a little bit more. And
right.
So.
I don't think, and it's like, unless people have been through it and realize they've been through it, you get all of the friends or other family, oh, just like you had, like, to sign that contract. Oh, that's your only shot at doing this and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but at what price?
Oh,
Yes, you're going to get to see your grandchildren, but it's such a tense thing,
no,
at
that's an excellent point. It was soul shrinking for me to do that, if you know what I
Mhm.
mean. Now
Absolutely.
I look back and I wish I hadn't. I
Yeah.
wish I had just let go of them right then and there, because my experience with being a long-termer with estrangement is that you have to let go of them, and we parents really have a hard time with that
We
because
do.
we're used to being in control. Nature sort of does a reversal on us when
Yeah, they do.
we have the children and we're the boss, and
Yeah.
we tell them, and we're teaching what we learned, which may or may not be good, but
Right.
and nobody teaches us how to be a parent. And so then the children, and I always see it like this: you have a child, and you're like this, right?
Right.
And as the child grows up, it kind of, the mother's always looking at the child, but the child goes, and the parent, not just the mother, but the parents always look after their child, but the child's going forward.
Yeah.
If you can't see my hands, but but so the children launch, they have their lives, but the parents always are just so attached, so
Yeah.
umbilically attached that they just can't let go. And we see other parents enjoying their grandchildren and a nice child who loves them and treats them well. And we like, what happened here? How did this happen? And
I would, when it first happened to me, my granddaughter was just coming up on 2 at the time. And so we missed 2.5 years
uh,
of that. Some of the real foundation stuff,
yeah. Mhm.
And so when it happened and it set in and I knew that I couldn't make it better, I couldn't fix it,
Yeah.
we would, my wife and I would be out to restaurants and we would
Oh,
see
yeah.
just what you're talking about,
Yeah.
clearly grandparents with their grandchildren, and it just killed me just about.
Yep. I had that. I talk about that in my book.
Oh,
I was in a restaurant one night with some friends, and a family came in with 4 kids, 2 little girls who are twins, and 2 older boys. Exactly the model of my son's family.
oh
Exactly.
gosh.
And I looked at them, and I had a little stab in my heart,
Yeah.
because it reminded me of them. But I made a decision immediately to not go there, not to compare, not to mourn what I can't have. I cannot have it.
Yeah.
Bottom line, there's nothing I can do to have what I want.
We talk about that in our group all the time, because there's a point in which, and everybody gets there, well, if they get there at their own time,
Yes, yes.
but that at some point you may have to just cut that cord, and it may not stay cut
Yeah.
because you say, okay, I'm done with you and I can't do it anymore, and then you see something like we're talking about and it all just comes back. But
Well, I think it's a daily practice. You never truly cut the cord.
right.
The way I'm working on a second book, and it's more like reflections, and it goes a little bit deeper than my
Yeah.
first book. Um, and I talk about cutting the cord.
Hmm.
And how I see it is, I sort of say, please, whoever's spirit, energy, whatever,
Right.
please cut the cord, the part of the cord that has gone bad,
Oh,
and
that's a good way to put it.
keep the love between us.
Yeah.
So that's the only way I can get around that one, because and when I get thoughts of my son and daughter-in-law, who I am working so hard on trying to forgive, and I'm sorry, I can't do it yet. I'm trying,
No, I hear you.
can't do it. Um, when I get thoughts of them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're never happy thoughts. Let's face it, unless we've had lucky to have a good conversation with maybe one of the grandchildren or something. It's always
Right.
here and there. I say, okay, to my thought. I go, okay, I know you're there. I love you, but I'm not willing to talk to you right now. I'm not willing to think about you right now. I actually talk to the thought, and that seems to help me. And
Yeah.
because you have to have a lot of techniques in place. I think
You do.
it's a daily, hourly, minute by minute practice sometimes. When we get into the rumination, or we say, I'll never see the kids again, you have to ask yourself, do you know that to be true for sure?
Right.
Or why are you thinking that? You don't know that. Anything can happen in life. It can happen tomorrow,
Right.
So yeah, my book is about recovery, and recovery is ongoing, and there's
It
no
is.
point, and there's no timeline. It's however you need to experience it, your own healing.
Yeah. It sounds a lot like the stages of grief,
It
you
is
know.
very much so, very much so, and they
Because,
apply. A lot of things apply. The Serenity Prayer from
sure.
AA applies.
Mm-hmm.
Al-Anon has some wonderful ideas for letting go, and it's easy to say it. Well, all you have to do is A, let go, B,
Yeah.
find peace. And you go, all right, thank you very much. Now
Yeah.
what?
I know, so many, and I've had a couple of guests on that say this, that people have said, well, okay, it's time. You just need to get over it.
No, you can't.
And you can't necessarily do that. I mean, some people might be able to, but
They're kidding themselves.
you, or they, they might fake it till they make it, or at least perceive that. But it's like
Mhm.
someone else that's not dealing with that, that just really upsets me for that person when they do that, because it's
Yeah,
clear
yeah,
that,
I hear you. You have to feel your grief. You have to
sure,
it's your grief. You have to acknowledge anger and feel it and know it's there. And sometimes it's a good thing to be angry because you get the hell with this shit. Sorry.
absolutely, no, that's fine. Well, it's funny you say that, because I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. Back probably a year or so ago now, my wife and I were trying to look into, doing other businesses or whatever. I have a 9 to 5 job now, but trying to be an entrepreneur-ish kind of stuff. And we thought, I was I was looking online about something, and there was one of those smash rooms. Have you ever heard of those?
Smash?
Uh-huh.
No.
Like there's this at the time, this was in like California. So I kind of looked into it a little bit, doing it around here, but it's literally this place, and I'm sure it's probably kind of like a warehouse kind of setting that you can go to and break things.
Oh,
Just
I've heard of that. I have heard
plates,
that. Yes. Yes.
computer parts, whatever, just things you can go to just to get out that healthy.
I saw it on Bling Empire on Netflix.
Yeah. So my wife and I started looking at doing something like that around here,
Oh,
because it wasn't here yet, and we just couldn't get it together. And now, of course, they're popping up. I'm like, we missed our chance.
okay.
But doing things like that,
Yeah.
or like you said, the Serenity Prayer, if that's your thing, or whatever, to try to heal whatever works for you.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank Nancy for coming on the show. Please be sure to tune in next week to hear the rest of her interview. I'd also like to remind everyone that if you would like to be on the show, or you have some suggestions, or you just want to drop me a line, please feel free to email me at beyondthepainpodcast@gmail.com. Also, remember, if you're hearing this for the first time, you can find me on most of the major podcasting sites like Apple, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. And then I'd also like to remind you to please try to live beyond the pain.